Now it's inside to Stevenson. Up against Kaminsky. Bucky good in the ball.
Santel all the way to the basket. Foul. Lays it in for two.
Hey, high school basketball fans. Welcome to the Upstate Hoops Podcast here. It's Sunday, January 9th, 2022. I'm Jim Sinicropi here inside the FingerLakes1.com studios at 12 North Park Street, Seneca Falls, New York. And on today's show, we're going to take a look at the Lions. Finally got a chance to see them in person this week. We're going to look at the Finger Lakes East Boys League that's kind of wide open right now in a way, unless you think maybe Wayne is the one that's the step above the rest of the pack. There were some good games in the Finger Lakes West, some good games on the girls' side of things too. We're going to look at all that stuff. We're going to look at some of the big games coming up next week. Updated power rankings, of course, and we might hear from Jalen Battle, Logan Salvatore from Dundee Bradford, Mackenzie Higbee and Maddie Verkey from the Minders girls during the show today, too. So glad you could be with me. The Upstate Hoops Podcast and all our coverage of Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball is brought to you thanks to the support of Generations Bank, Little John Orthodontics, and DeSanto Propane. So, number one team in our power rankings, the Lions, after Wayne dropped the game to Pelmac a couple weeks ago. They kind of swapped 1 and 2, but I haven't seen the Lions in person. I saw them online a few times, but got a chance to see them in Pelmac on Tuesday night. Ted Baker and myself called that game for FingerLakes1.com, and we were excited about it because in this Wayne County League, there's really not any games that Wayne's not going into as a 15 to 20 point favorite. And we thought, geez, good Finger Lakes East team in Pelmac, Lions on the road. This was going to be a good barometer of what the Lions look like this season, especially heading into sectionals and maybe beyond. And they played great. They got the win 70-62 on the road against a very good Pelmac team that was at full strength for the first time this season as well. And, Lions is just super athletic from top to bottom. They went really deep on their bench. I think they do lose a little bit if they're going to have some of their key guys get into foul trouble, but still a very capable bench. But between J.C. Walker, Jalen Battle, Tony Pierre, Sequire Norvell, Jaden Lopez, that's your starting five right there. But J.C. Walker is just a freak athlete, dominant on the boards, offensive boards, capable offensively, and just really a next-level type of player that you can hang your hat on if you're Coach Dean Schott. Jalen Battle, usually shooting guard, but in this particular game, Lopez was in some foul trouble, so Jalen handled some of the point. He's obviously a very capable player in his own right, great athlete, great ability to, when he decides to attack the rim, to get there and finish. And he put some big points up this week in some other games. But this Lions-Pelmac game was really a great win for the Lions. J.C. Walker had 26 points. Jalen Battle had 18 in that one. And as I mentioned, it was the first game that Coach Trevor Sanders had his full roster back with Paul Goodness and Ian Goodness. Ian had been out for most of the season. And Paul Goodness got off to a slow start in this one. Ended up with 21 points. Got a lot of those from the three-point line. Was never able to really find open shots from beyond the arc. His brother Ian, on the other hand, the younger of the two, who's a junior, I think he hit 4 or 5 three-pointers in that game. Finished with 17, as I mentioned. And this Pelmac team's pretty good too. Quinn Nolan's a great athlete. Damian Knack, Noah Brooks had a nice game. And but to see, a Lions team who's top in Wayne County, clearly, step out and go into the gym of Finger Lakes East team was great. That's what we want to see. So they passed that test for sure, coming away with an 8-point win to they'll play Palmac's coming back to Lions in a week or two, and so that'll be a chance for Palmac to maybe redeem themselves. But looking in that Lions schedule for maybe games that could potentially be losses for them in the regular season, and this was certainly one of them, and they got the 70-62 win. They also finished off their week, and you want to talk about what I mean, how they're not going to get challenged in Wayne County. Gananda, one of the better teams in Wayne County outside of Lions, and they went into the Atwood Gymnasium, the Blue Panthers did, and lost by 30, 90-60 this week. Jalen Battle had 32 points in that one. J.C. Walker had 23. Tony Pierre had 16. Lucas Siprich led the way for the Blue Panthers with 17. And then they also hosted Red Creek this week, and despite 18 points from Jace Brown, Lions won 70-42. 28 more points for J.C. Walker in that one, and 12 for Jalen Battle. So we had a chance to talk to Jalen Battle after that Gananda game that was broadcast live on FingerLakes1.com, and I want to play that interview for you right now.
All right, welcome back on FingerLakes1.com. Little John and Barbie over the Donick Smell Style postgame show. I'm Paul Russo, here with our Cicino's Pizza and Restaurant Player of the Game, Jalen Battle. Jalen, congratulations on a great game.
Thank you.
So first question, coming into the game, you have a very big win Tuesday night against Palmac. Coming into today, Wayne County tied atop the standings with them undefeated. What was the game plan coming into the game today?
Game plan was basically, stay in shooter's face and get to the rack.
Obviously,
bucket.
Obviously, your game, I have you down for 32 points. Big night offensively, but equally that impressed me was your effort and hustle defensively. Is that something you take pride in amongst yourself and amongst your teammates?
Yeah, coach tells me, go guard this player or this player. I like to try and go and shut that player down for 0 points.
Well, great job. So we have a certificate for you for a free cheese pizza at Cicino's at Waterloo or Geneva. Have you had Cicino's before?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. I'm sure you like their pizza then.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get you out here on this note. Obviously, big game coming up Monday night in the College Football Playoff Championship, Alabama versus Georgia. Who do you got?
We're going with Bryce Young, Alabama.
Attaboy, I like that answer. Jalen, congratulations again on a big game. We'll let you get to the locker room and celebrate your teammates.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So there you heard from Jalen Battle. And, yeah, this Lions team's for real. It's not much different than the past couple years, I suppose, where they weren't going to get too many challenges in their league in the regular season. And believe me, this is coming off a period of basketball 4 or 5 years ago where the Wayne County League was incredible. It was just awesome. You had Tyler Norris at North Rose Wolcott. You had Red Creek go from Jake Slobe to Klein. Those two programs were top notch. Gananda, Enrique Mosman, and oh geez, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. One of my favorite players. Anyways, Gananda was very good. East Rochester was very good. Clyde was great. As a matter of fact, Clyde was the class of the league, and with Derek and Marcus Chance and Drew Carnevale, and it took until Justice Smith's maybe junior year where Lions finally beat them. But the Wayne County League was awesome. That's just not really the case right now. So expect Lions to rack up the wins until maybe Palmac comes to town later this month, and I think they're playing a couple out of section games maybe on their schedule too. So moving ahead, I want to talk about the Finger Lakes East, the boys. Kind of think you got these things figured out, heading into the season, and then there's some surprises, and we're just starting to finally get used to some of these rosters that we're seeing. And the Finger Lakes East is very deep and very competitive. Wayne, the early favorite, still holds the top spot, but they were beaten by Palmac a few weeks ago in a game where neither team was at full strength. And that's another problem when trying to gauge this stuff, is there's just been so many players that have had to sit out for COVID reasons or maybe some other injury, but and you just never seem to know how full strength some of these teams are when they play. But this was a pretty interesting week in the league with some games that kind of really, at the end of the day, opened things up in the Finger Lakes East. And first and foremost, Newark went to, this is a big week for Geneva. So Newark went to Geneva. I think heading into that game, people thought this is going to be a 15-point Newark win. But Geneva had other plans. They come out with a 1-point win in overtime, 51-50 over the Newark Reds. And Geneva team's like super athletic, and Ed Collins is trying to kind of harness that athleticism and get these guys playing as a team. And when he does, look out. I mean, this is the type of thing that you're going to see here. And the Geneva was also at Penn Yan, another very good boys team in the Finger Lakes East, and they won 56-50 on the road. In that Newark game, Brian Whitley had 13 points, 11 rebounds, 10 blocks. That's a triple-double. Hector Rodriguez had 11. Ethan Townsend had 11. Devin Thomas had 6 points, 9 rebounds. In that game at Penn Yan, Hector Rosado had 18. Devin Thomas had 17. So wasn't really thinking that the Geneva Panthers were going to be able to break into the top half of the league or maybe even contend for a league title this year, but this week would prove different. So great week for the Geneva Panthers. Marcus Whitman boys still hanging out in the Finger Lakes East, even though they had tremendous roster turnover, playing as Class C school in a predominantly B, and in case of Wayne and Geneva, A school league. And they went to Wayne. That didn't go too well for Coach O'Connor's boys. 68-29 Wayne win. But then they went to Livonia and had a nice 58-52 win. So this Marcus Whitman team's kind of been up and down too. Remember, they beat Pelmac. Again, Pelmac not at full strength in that game. But nonetheless, there's a few teams that are like Jekyll and Hyde. And this Whitman team is one of them. So they split this week. They lose their league game. They win, representing the Finger Lakes East, doing a crossover against Livonia. Pelmac did get back on track with a 61-28 win over Waterloo. And Newark got back on track after the Geneva loss with a 44-33 win at Minders. And this is the type of Jekyll and Hyde stuff I'm talking about. I got to check out that game at Arthur L. Baker between Newark and Minders, which is always like, a super intense rivalry. You can feel a little bit of extra electricity in the gymnasiums when those two teams meet. And of course, they've met fairly recently, 4 years ago in the Blue Cross Arena for the sectional finals. And this game didn't disappoint either. But, in that game, Newark clearly looked like the better team in the fact just that they were physically dominant up front. It was the best game I've seen Isaiah Camp have in the middle for Newark. He was finishing well. He was active. Between him and Rayshawn Howard, it was really a lot for Minders to handle. And it's the type of thing where, watching this Minders team now, Troy Cabot is providing the bulk of their offense. And when I saw him playing Skinny Atlas and when I saw him playing this Newark game, he was off early, eventually got it going and scoring, but he's got to pretty much score from opening tip to final buzzer for this Minders team to beat quality teams like Newark or Wayne or really almost anybody in the Finger Lakes East. They did go to Marcus Whitman and got a win, but even that wasn't easy. That was a close game coming down the stretch. So, looking at this Minders team, it's not much different than last year where they looked a little lost early in the season. But again, step into sectionals, they're in Class B2. They got to still be favorites. But they got a lot of work to do. I'm watching this team. I'm not exactly sure outside of Troy Cabot what anybody else's role is. A lot of different looks coming off the bench, different games. And really, the Minders bigs of Bogart and Jaden Key were kind of struggling, especially offensively and on the boards against that big Newark front line. Now, not everybody's going to be bringing a front line like Rayshawn Howard and Isaiah Camp, but nonetheless, it was kind of obvious that from the start that it was going to be a long day for the Minders bigs there. And Nick Anderson at Wells saw a lot of time in that game, and I don't want to say men versus boys type of deal, but they looked outmatched physically by those two kids from Newark. And I don't know if they're going to face a front line like that come in the sectionals, but other than that, Minders hung around. and then ended up losing by 11 points. So tough because it was at home. So they're going to get a chance to go back to Newark, but looking at league title implications in the Finger Lakes East, that was a big loss for Minders and really almost a must-win for Newark if they want to get back into the race after losing to Geneva and losing at Wayne badly. Remember, they did beat Pelmac pretty handily. So it's pretty wide open in there, but I still think, Wayne's got to be the favorite. Mason Blankenberg, best player in the league. I don't think anybody would argue with that. And he's the type of player that really makes all his teammates better. But, again, going back to that Minders team, lots of pieces. Ethan Hillmeyer and DJ Bruni kind of share the point guard duties with Ethan starting and DJ coming off the bench. And both those kids are tremendously talented. I love watching Ethan Hillmeyer play because he has such good court vision. He has a little bit of flair. He's not afraid to, for instance, go behind the back. But finding, picking the spots, he needs to play smart, Ethan Hillmeyer does, because he's going up against a lot of guys that are sometimes physically quicker than him. And I think, looking at this Minders team, that somebody needs to kind of run the show out there from a floor general standpoint. I mean, Troy certainly can fill it up, but he a lot of times can't create himself, so it needs to happen within the offense. This Minders team, I think, just needs to come together, learn, find their roles, embrace their roles, and yeah, they could do damage in the postseason. But league title at this point, that was a tough one at home against Newark. So I haven't talked much about the Waterloo boys this year because they're a little bit down. That's another team in the Finger Lakes East. But they had a nice win against Red Jacket at home, 57-47. And this just goes to highlight sometimes the difference between the leagues. The last place team in the Finger Lakes East beat one of the, I don't know if they're they might be the top team in the West, Red Jacket, 57-47, as I mentioned. Dalton Handline had 12. Parker Moore had 12 for Red Jacket. For Waterloo, it was Casey Burkhoff with 15 and Nolan Saluka with 13. Devin Mulvey Salerno with 13. And I'm not really bashing on the Finger Lakes West because the Finger Lakes West is always exciting and it's super competitive this year too. Again, wide open out there. Just smaller schools usually. But in the past, the top teams in the West have been able to compete with teams in the Finger Lakes East for sure, but this just goes to show you a 10-point win for the last place team in the Finger Lakes East over one of the teams in the upper half of the Finger Lakes West. But that doesn't mean that none of these Finger Lakes West teams can advance in the C classes of sectionals, and in the case of Romulus, the D class, and do some damage. So, speaking of the West, Red Jacket picked up a big win against HAC, who in my mind controlled their own destiny in the West. And again, I'm not sure if who was out or not out due to COVID quarantines, but Red Jacket with a 70-61 win at HAC. Dalton Handline had 18 in that game to lead the Indians to victory. And I don't know if I would call it shocking, but I really thought and still do that HAC is kind of a step above in the West, but this win by Red Jacket certainly shook things up in the standings, and that Finger Lakes West League is wide open. Another huge game. Well, I'll get to that in a second. Just another big game in the West. Mid Lakes beat Naples 63-53. Ricky Wright had 19. Mike DeHaan had 12. Kyle Kumpke had 11, and Dylan Mattoon had 10. Ryan Lester for the Big Green Machine, 31 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and Dylan Bray with 12. Honeoye stepped out of the league and handed Arkport Canaseraga a 59-43 win in Honeoye. So this Honeoye team is pretty solid too. It's pretty balanced across the Finger Lakes West, and we're hoping to get some more looks, live Finger Lakes West games as we move forward in the next several weeks here of the regular season. But one of the games in the West we were most excited about this week was Dundee Bradford at Romulus. The Romulus boys program has just been mired in, I guess, mediocrity over the past several years. Once proud program, but this year's team in Romulus, I think, is sectional contenders in D2. So watching how they're doing in league here with an eye towards the postseason, and this was a key matchup because Dundee Bradford, appearing to be one of the better teams in the Finger Lakes West, they were coming to Romulus. Big test for both teams. It was a game you heard live on FingerLakes1.com, and in a pretty tightly contested game, Dundee Bradford came out with a 62-53 win. Logan Salvatore led the way with 16 points. Nick Slavic with 11. Logan Ayers had 9. John Bell had 8. And for Romulus, and these are some familiar names, a pretty experienced team, although the one underclassman or non-senior Mike Kaufman with 15 points leading the way, one of the top scorers in the West. Henry Morse had 10, Ben Jessup had 9, Zach Butler had 8, and Connor Franklin had 5 for Joe Peisnack's Warriors, who, tough loss for them. I thought if they could win this game that they might even have an inside track on winning the West, and we're trying to, trying to see like what we think about some of these teams is holding true. And Romulus can certainly bounce back and stay in the league race in the West. As I mentioned, it's pretty wide open, but there's going to be lots of good games between the Red Jackets, Bloomfields, Dundee, Romulus, HAC, Mid-Lakes. The West is pretty fun this year, so we're going to be keeping an eye on it for sure. And after the Dundee Bradford win in Romulus earlier this week, we got a chance to hear from Logan Salvatore, and I'm going to play that one for you right now here. Post-game show, Little John Orthodox post-game show. Logan Salvatore joined Paul Russo and Jason Hunt.
I'll ask the question again for the viewers at home, and that way, what was the game plan coming into the night with both you and Romulus respectively starting off really good as well as you guys have?
We knew they were a hot start team, and we knew they were going to press us. They do every year. We noticed they had a lot of bigger guys that were a lot slower because we're a pretty quick team. And so we decided just to keep the pace up and try to attack them.
And then, you mentioned obviously with the pace in the game, and it was a fast-paced game, in game-wise. What was it like for you out there? Because you were pretty much everywhere both offensively and defensively.
I try to do everything that I can to help my team out. That's kind of what I've kind of strive to go for. It's kind of like an all-around player.
Yeah.
I don't like to be too selfish. We came out, that was kind of a slow start for us, but I'm glad we got to kind of calm it down and get the win.
And then looking forward quickly for you guys, you have Naples coming up on Monday. What you're looking for in that game for you guys is another step in the direction here within league play.
We're just trying to get all the wins we can get right now. We know that we're one of the better teams in the league. Us and HAC, we're both respectful. So we're just trying to go out there and do what we can do and try to get better every single game.
All right, we'll get you out here on this question, get you back with your teammates celebrating. Big college football matchup on Monday, Alabama, Georgia. Quick prediction, any analysis going into that game?
I hope Georgia wins it.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to go take with Alabama. Can't go against Nick Saban.
Yeah, I like that answer. I really do. Logan, 16 points. He led the way scoring-wise. Here's your certificate for a free cheese pizza at Cicino's, Geneva, or Waterloo location. That way, next time you're up this way, grab yourself a free pie.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. No problem. Good game. All right, Jason Hunt back.
So that was Logan Salvatore from the Dundee Bradford Scots or Braves Scots. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like when these schools merge, they should come up with some new name or pick one or the other, at least for the mascot name. They can be Dundee Bradford, but Dundee Bradford Brave Scots, that's a lot. Yeah, I don't know if you combine the words or what, but anyway. Moving forward to the girls before we get to the week ahead in our power rankings. Finger Lakes East is similar to the boys' league in the Finger Lakes East in the fact that it's pretty muddled in the middle, although Waterloo's been proven to be unbeatable. They had a test this week against Palmac, and there'll be some more tests for the Lady Indians moving forward. But they did test themselves by stepping out of the league and playing a really tough Our Lady of Mercy team on the road in a game they won 43-34. Giovanna White Principio with 19 points in that one for Mike Bray's Lady Indians. And then in a game that's been one of the better rivalry games, I think, in the Finger Lakes East Girls League over the past few years, has brought Palmac to Waterloo. And Waterloo didn't have much problem winning 55-36. Giovanna White Principio in the middle with 17 points. Morgan Caraballo 14 points. Macy Carr with 9. And yeah, this isn't your Palmac team of the past few years. They certainly have a lot of talent and size and can improve throughout the season, get ready for sectionals. And again, they're going to be in that same class with Waterloo, so they would have to beat Waterloo to secure a sectional title or advance in sectionals at some point, it would look like. So, but, you know, I really like Dan Harris's crew. I think they are going to get better. There's a lot of younger kids who were on those sectional championship teams of recent years, but they are in new roles now. So you'll recognize a lot of the last names, but now they're asked to be not supporting players, but the key players. And, you know, I think they're going to get there for sure. I just think it takes a little bit of time, and I'm really impressed with Riley Trail in the middle. She's 6'1", and she's super athletic. She moves good. She needs to get a little more confidence, just be able to finish a little more consistently at the rim. And I think this Palmac team will be fine, but Waterloo, not too much of a surprise, I guess, with getting the better of them. What was a really interesting game to me, and it was a game you heard on FingerLakes1.com as well, I think it was on Thursday night, the Minders girls went to Palmac, and Minders girls haven't beat Palmac since 2017, something like 6, 7, 8 games in a row. And it was a big test for this Minders team, who I think is way better, much better than last year's Minders team in terms of talent on the team, or a lot of the youngsters now getting a little older. And it's interesting to me to see how these girls we're going to progress through the season. And just like the boys, they're playing in a league full of A2 and B1 teams. They're going to step into B2 in sectionals. Things will be a little bit easier for them. So certainly sectional contenders. And what a huge win for Minders on the road. 45-38 over Palmac. Mackenzie Higbee had 19 points. Maddie Verkey had 14, including a really big three-pointer right in front of her own bench near the end of that game that kind of sealed it for the Blue Devils. And Haley Mosh had 6 for Minders. For Palmac, Tatum Smythe had 16, and she's a really impressive player. She's one of those, again, Katie Smythe, her sister, one of the best players in program history. And Tatum in her shadow for most of her career so far. Now finally, this is her team, and I think she's more than ready to pick up where her sister left off. She had a great game, and she really kept her team in it at times when it looked like Minders was going to maybe open up a gap and pull away. She always had a big basket and great free throw shooting through that game. Just a really solid player. Riley Trail had 10. Georgia Worth had 6. Was impressed with her as well. Molly Seether. This Palmac team's very good. I just think they need a little bit more time, a few more practices and games heading into January and February to kind of, hopefully for them, peak during sectionals, where they may have to take another run at Waterloo. But this Minders team, just a really, really good week. They went into Newark and handled them super easy, 56-36 on Saturday afternoon. And 2 big league wins for Jerry Anderson's Lady Blue Devils. So, as we're going to look ahead to the week ahead coming up, but I think you're going to see Minders Waterloo on that schedule for the girls on Friday night. And that is one to really get excited about. You know that Waterloo is going to be primed up for their crosstown rival, and Minders, who's took it on the chin from Waterloo for the past few years, I think has a team that will be able to give Waterloo a run here. And I don't know, we'll see. That's why we play the games, right? So before we get to the week ahead, let's look at the power rankings. Not too much movement, especially at the top. We'll start with the boys. Lions remains at number 1 with that nice win over Palmac. They might be there for a while. Again, Wayne already has a couple losses, one out of league and one in league to Palmac. So it's tough to see Lions falling out of that top spot without losing a game, and I don't know if they're going to lose a game. Regardless, Lions 1, Wayne 2, Newark 3, which is tough for a team that's just about 500, but man, they were impressive this week, and it's even though Palmac did beat Wayne, with both teams being a little short-handed, Newark beat Palmac handily. So Newark's got to be 3. Palmac 4, Minders 5. Minders of Palmac will play soon as well. That'll be a good game. And then Geneva, who I don't even know if we started them in the top 10 preseason, all the way up to 6, and they may be able to rise as high as 2 or 3. Just really great week for Ed Collins' squad with wins at Penn Yan, and then that big win against Newark, a 1-point overtime win in Geneva. Penn Yan drops to 7, kind of swap places with Geneva after Geneva got that win. And then Dundee Bradford up at 8th is the top team out of the West. HAC upset by Red Jacket this week, which maybe Red Jacket should have been on here. It's kind of tough when we get down here towards 10 through 15. So it goes HAC, Marcus Whitman, Gananda, Waterloo at 12. And again, that Waterloo team beat Red Jacket pretty handily in a crossover. Mid-Lakes 13, Romulus 14, despite that loss to Dundee Bradford, and Bloomfield 15. So if you're going to see a lot of movement in these power rankings, it's going to be towards the middle and bottom going forward. I don't see Lions going to have it's going to be tough for them to relinquish that top spot. And be interesting to see, though, if any of these other Finger Lakes East teams can get hot, maybe pull what might be a mild upset against a really good Wayne team and slide up ahead of Wayne in the power rankings. So that will be something to keep an eye on. Now let's take a look at the girls' side of things on the power rankings, and no surprise, Waterloo staying number 1, East Rochester number 2. I wish Waterloo and East Rochester played each other. This East Rochester girls team is really, really good. In the same vein that this Waterloo team is good, and they've been on this run. Can't remember the last time East Rochester girls lost. They didn't lose last year. Neither did Waterloo. I wish they could find a way to maybe match up in a crossover. If both teams are maybe looking for a makeup game, I think it would be a great game. But both teams heavy sectional favorites, and state implications too for both Waterloo and East Rochester. And there's a team that has certainly been to states more than anyone else on this list over the past in recent history would be the Mid-Lake Screaming Eagles, who look like they might be a little bit down this year after losing Kara Walker to graduation and others, but they've proven that they're still a pretty solid program. Remember, they split with Minders already this year. One of those wins being the loss to Minders being in a preseason tournament over Thanksgiving break, but then they went to Arthur L. Baker and really took it to the Lady Blue Devils. But like I mentioned, great week for Minders, beating Palmac on the road and then going to Newark and getting another road win there. They move up to 4, Palmac 5. Penn Yan girls pretty tough at 6. And then we get out of the Finger Lakes East and got a Clyde Savannah Golden Eagle team that's been great so far at 7. Dundee Bradford girls looking like the class of the West, along with the HAC girls who've been winning games at a nice clip. They're at 8-9. Gananda Blue Panthers, always good. Karen Mewison's program just keeps producing quality teams. They're 10. Bloomfield 11. Lions tough week at 12. Wayne 13. Wayne beat Lions when they faced each other this week. Marcus Whitman at 14 and Newark at 15. So there are your power rankings for the week of, what is this, January 9th. And it's going to be a lot of these teams in our power rankings are going to be meeting up with each other this week and going forward. And so I think it's a good time now to maybe look at the week ahead and some games that we've highlighted here. Let's start with the boys' side. On Monday night, Palmac at Minders. That's a really good game. Going to be really interesting. The Minders boys need to win this one after losing to Newark at home. And the Palmac in need of a win as well. So that's going to be the game of one of the best games this week, happening right off the bat on Monday night. Tuesday night, Mid Lakes, former Finger Lakes East team, now in the West, goes to Penn Yan. HAC at Honeoye. Again, HAC coming off a loss, looking to get back on track. Naples at Dundee Bradford. Romulus at Bloomfield. Romulus coming off that loss, trying to establish themselves as a top team in the West. Going to need to win on the road at Bloomfield. And we haven't seen a lot of Bloomfield yet, but they are a team that certainly can contest or compete for the West title as well. So good to see them back in action. South Seneca's at Red Jacket. And then Lions at East Rochester, which in the past has been a really good rivalry game with some good East Rochester teams, but Lions going to be heavily favored in that one. Move ahead to Wednesday, Marcus Whitman at Newark. And, again, Newark split last week with Geneva and Minders, and now Marcus Whitman's coming into town. Certainly no guarantee and a big game for Whitman, too, in terms of sectional point potential. Pal Mac at Wayne. Again, Wayne's going to be looking for revenge, I suppose, after that last loss. And then they're going to be at the Eagles' Nest on Wednesday night. And Geneva is going to be at Minders. So, boy, tough week for Minders. 2 home games at least, but Palmac and an upstart Geneva team coming to town. And, again, those athletics bigs for Geneva could provide the same type of issues for Minders as Newark did. So we're going to see if they can make some adjustments and pick up a win there against the Panthers. Thursday, CG Finney, at HAC, Red Jacket at Romulus. So all these Finger Lakes West games are pretty big right now, because anybody can beat anybody, as far as I can tell, in the West. Pal Max at Geneva on Friday night, which these are all big games. We're in the heart of it now. These are all big games. Every week, every night, you're going to see some big games of interest. And it's fun now because we've gotten some looks, so we know what to expect. And these are all going to be highly competitive games. Friday night, Minders boys at Waterloo. Big rivalry game usually. Minders will be favored heading into that one, but certainly a Waterloo team that's been off to a slow start has that one on their calendar. And so it should be a fun night at Waterloo High School as the boys crosstown rivalry game in the boys' side between Minders and Waterloo. Wayne's at Penn Yan, certainly a game that Penn Yan has marked on their calendar, and no, it's not going to be an easy win for Wayne. Newark's at Dansville, stepping out of league. Romulus at Midlakes in the West. Lions at Clyde, one of the greatest rivalries in all of the Wayne Finger Lakes, but not this year, sorry. There's too big of a gap in talent. It really makes me sad because those games over the past 10 years that we've been covering live games here on FingerLakes1.com have just been unbelievable. The atmosphere in the gym, some of the stuff that's happened. And if you want some nostalgia, go on YouTube, search Lions, Clyde, Savannah, FL1 Sports, and you'll see some of these games come up. And I urge you to maybe watch a few to see really high school basketball at its best. But probably not going to be the case this year, as Clyde's program really struggling. Hoping to see them get back to the status that they've enjoyed historically. So where were we? Lions, Clyde, Ganadas at East Rochester. That's another huge rivalry game up there in northwestern Wayne County. Red Creek at Sodus, another Wayne County game this week. Looking at the girls, Monday night, Penn Yan's at South Seneca. Tuesday night, Waterloo at Geneva, Palmac at Wayne, East Rochester at Lions, and that's the game to keep an eye on, I think, on the girls on Tuesday night. This Lions team has shown that they can, very good team, obviously, behind Jay LaBelle and Amani Harder, but they certainly, in my opinion, aren't the class of East Rochester, but a chance to maybe prove that they're a little better than we thought. But this very good East Rochester team coming to the Atwood. I don't know what games we're going to do live this week. We'll be announcing it tomorrow. after we've had a chance to get together with the team and pick our games. I mean, we've got so many great broadcasters to bring you some of these games, and we're trying to plug them in. If you're an AD out there and you have one of those automatic cams, we want you to take our audio feed and just plug it into your school's video feed to make it a little more enjoyable for those watching at home. And, people say, well, why aren't you bringing your cameras out? Well, every game is already streamed, so it's so much work to do. So we can show up and give the audio side of things on FL1 radio, and any school that wants to take that feed from our mixer into their system is more than welcome. We'd love it. And we have some equipment to maybe make that a little easier, like a wireless audio transmitter. If it's something that you're interested in, if you're an athletic director or coach watching this, please let us know, because we'd love to do it. So where was I? I got sidetracked here. East Rochester Lions moving ahead to Wednesday night. Marcus Whitman's at Penn Yan. Liz Royston's squad heading to, that's a crosstown rivalry game. And then on Friday night, this one's going to be better than the boys' side. Minders is playing Waterloo on the boys' side, but they're also playing on the girls' side in Seneca Falls. Waterloo at Minders. This one is going to be a really interesting game to watch, because I do think that this Minders team has now matured and elevated to the point where they could be able to give Waterloo a game. It has been pretty one-sided the past couple of years, and I know that Waterloo is going to be ready to play for this one unlike any other game, so it's Coach Anderson's squad going to be ready to play as well. They're going to need to protect the ball against that Waterloo pressure. I know they certainly have the size to match up against White Principio inside, and good experienced guard play. Maddie Verkey's really emerged as a scoring option this season. Mackenzie Higbee, who was out last year with an injury, off to a little slow start to her season, but finally is starting to get back into the flow of things. Between Haley Mosh and Bridget Miller and Bella Ferrara inside, and I can't wait for Friday night. I think it's going to be a really good girls basketball game, and a chance for Minders to make a statement, but also a chance for Waterloo to make a statement by really taking care of business against one of their rivals in a game that I know that both teams really have had marked on their calendar for a long time. So that's Friday night. Other good games Friday night, too. Newark's at Midlakes, Penn Yan's at Wayne, Marcus Whitman at Dundee Bradford. Really interesting game there. East Rochester at Gananda. Huge rivalry game. Gananda, another team that maybe could trip up East Rochester. We'll see. And then on Saturday, we talked about Lions Clyde on the boys' side not being of much interest this year, but on the girls' side, highly interested. Really great matchup here. They already met once. It was a game Clyde won fairly easily, but this time Clyde's coming to Lions, and really excited for that one. That's going to be a Saturday tip. So, wow. Man, good games this week, right? Good games this week. And I guess that's about all I got for you right now. But again, if you notice with our coverage, we're doing a lot of games, but it's on FingerLakes1.com radio. When we went to Skinny Atlas, reminder Skinny Atlas, they pulled our audio feed into their video feed, and they got tons of positive response. We went to Pelmac twice this week, and they were able to pull our audio feed into their production, which is mainly operated by students at Pelmac, and so it was fun to work with them. When you do a broadcast of any kind, so for instance in Pelmac, we're on the audio side, and then you had the students running cameras and running and producing. When it's all done, man, you just look at the people you work with, you say, man, good broadcast, good job, man. Everybody was pretty happy because it's fun. Teamwork's a big part of that stuff, and so it was fun to work with the team at Pelmac High School, and we would love to do it as well at other places. And not everybody has students producing the feed, but they do have these automatic huddle cams that do have the option to integrate a secondary audio feed. So we'd like to work with school administrators or IT directors or athletic directors to be able to make that possible. So there isn't some people watching on YouTube, some people listening to us, some people doing both at the same time, but it's tough to sync them up because our audio feed usually comes through with a lot less latency than the school's video feeds, usually like a minute difference between our live feed and what you're seeing if you're watching those videos. So, and this isn't to say we aren't going to do any video games either. We probably will do a few before we're out, but really thinking that the best way to do it is to somehow get our audio feed into the school's video production. So, but we're excited. I mean, I'm really excited. Heading into this year, there's a little trepidation about who is going to be in quarantine, or if this season, with the Omicron and everything, how much the season was going to be impacted. But we're plugging right along here, and we're into January. And the next month of regular season action is going to be really interesting, setting up what should be a great postseason with a lot of Finger Lakes and Wayne teams, potentially sectional contenders for sure, if not favorites. And that goes from maybe Wayne or even Geneva in A2 to your Newarks and Palmacs of the world in B1 to Minders and Penn Yan in B2. C1, nobody's really standing out as a favorite, but, Marcus Whitman boys certainly could contend in C1. C2, Lions is looking like a runaway favorite in Class C2. And then down to C3 and even Romulus in D2 should be a really, really exciting postseason. So hopefully we'll get a clearer picture of what that's going to look like over the next several weeks of regular season play. And then when we get closer to sectionals and states, which is really exciting for teams like Waterloo girls and East Rochester girls and Lions boys who didn't have an opportunity last year to enter the state tournament because there wasn't one. So when states get back, and for some of these girls, upperclassmen, seniors, this is their last chance after not having a chance. And we've traditionally had teams get to states from especially the girls' side on a regular basis, whether it was South Seneca or then Mid Lakes for a few years. We've made that trip to Hudson Valley Community College in Troy, New York, multiple years in a row to bring you those games live. So hopefully we can make that trip again. And again, I want to thank our whole team here at Finger Lakes 1. Really happy to have Ted Baker on board calling games for us. The best in the biz without a doubt. And so really exciting that he's broadcasting under our banner this year and part of our team. Paul Russo, Jason Hunt, myself, who else calling games? Nate Sharman, Kyle French had the call from Lions and Gananda. Mike Alessio, Kevin Sharp. I got a chance to call a game with Kevin Sharp in that Lions Palmat game this week for the first time this year. So I love our crew. Nobody more, I guess, knowledgeable or excitable about high school basketball. The thing about that team is everybody gets excited about these games as much as I do. So great stretch coming up, and I guess that's going to be about it for this week. So thanks for joining us on the Upstate Hoops Podcast. Connect with us on Twitter at Finger Lakes 1. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Just hit the red button if you're watching us on YouTube right now. And again, that'll get you a lot of feeds to all our content, not just this podcast, but also a lot of our live games. Our audio-only podcast is available most everywhere you enjoy your audio content. And archived episodes are available, at fingerlakes1.com. You can also find our show, live stream games, and local news, weather, and sports 24/7 on the free fingerlakes1.com Android or iPhone app. Thanks for joining us. Hope you have a great week, and maybe we'll see you out there in some of the gyms this week as we announce our broadcast schedule for the week tomorrow. Thanks. Have a great Sunday, everybody.